Have you ever imagined what you would do if the one you love fell into the hands of your enemies at their weakest moment? Love, sacrifice, and courage all unfold in this deeply emotional story. Diep, a young woman battling a life-threatening illness, is suddenly kidnapped by a criminal gang due to a business conflict with her lover, James. In such a cruel situation, can love be powerful enough to rescue them both from the darkness? What exactly is the conflict between James and John, and why did it put Diep in danger? When abducted in her fragile condition, how will Diep find hope to survive? Is James's love strong enough for him to risk everything to save her without turning to the police? In the battle between reason and heart, what choice will James ultimately make? When he finally finds Diep, will it be too late? A rescue without weapons, only love and courage, how will it end? Their embrace in the cold night, is it the end, or the beginning of a new journey? If you love emotional, intense, and heartfelt stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next episodes. Diep, 23 years old, has been fighting a life-threatening illness for the past month. After undergoing surgery, her health is critically weak. She lies in the hospital bed, her pale skin and eyes dulled by the constant pain. She can't seem to get any rest as the pain keeps her awake, every movement causing her exhaustion to intensify. Each meal is a battle, and every night is filled with anxiety and loneliness. The quiet hum of the hospital room is broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock. Diep lies still, trapped in her thoughts, reflecting on her life and the complications that have arisen. A while ago, Diep and James, her boyfriend, were living in a happy relationship. But everything began to change when James got entangled in a serious conflict with John, the notorious leader of a criminal gang, and his men. John had been displeased with a failed business deal involving James and had threatened him. Despite this, James tried to remain calm and confident, believing he could handle the situation. Diep, however, grew more anxious as their relationship became strained. She had tried to warn him to stay away from the dangerous dealings with John, but James believed he could manage the situation. She loved him dearly but was afraid of where their relationship would go. The threat was real, and James couldn't escape the world of crime that seemed to pull him deeper every day. Then, one evening, while Diep was alone at home, she heard a knock at the door. Her heart raced, a wave of anxiety washing over her. She tried to steady herself, but her frail body could barely support her as she stood up. The door suddenly burst open, and 3 men with cold, menacing looks stormed into the house. Before Diep could react, John's henchmen ruthlessly dragged her away. She screamed in terror, but her cries were quickly silenced as one of the men covered her mouth. Her strength was gone, weakened by the surgery, and she couldn't fight back. The men dragged her out of the house, forcing her into a black car, speeding through the deserted streets. Diep's mind raced. She realized that she had been kidnapped, but she had no idea why or what they wanted. She only thought about James. Would he know what had happened? Would he be able to save her in time? The car sped through the dark streets, and Diep felt more and more lost with every passing second. The world outside seemed a blur, and she couldn't stop shaking in fear. The kidnappers didn't speak, and only the sound of the tires on the road filled the silence. Diep's mind was in turmoil, her only thought being James. Would he come for her? Would he find her before it was too late? Or would she be lost in the hands of these people forever? The car eventually came to a halt in front of an old, decrepit house. The door opened, and Diep was dragged out. She was too weak to resist, her body trembling with fear as they forced her into the dark, cold room inside. The air was damp, and the only light came from a faint bulb flickering overhead. Diep could hardly see anything around her, but she could feel the men closing in, their threatening presence pressing against her. She was trapped, helpless. She sat in the dark, feeling the cold crawl over her skin, her heart racing with anxiety. The only sound was her labored breathing, her fear growing by the second. She knew she couldn't escape. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway as the men moved around, but she didn't dare look up. Her thoughts were consumed by one thing, James. Was he looking for her? Would he come for her? Suddenly, her phone rang, breaking the silence. Diep glanced at the screen and froze. It was John calling. Her pulse quickened, and her hands trembled as she answered the phone. Diep, John's cold voice came through the line. If James doesn't do what I tell him, you won't ever see him again. Diep's heart sank as she listened to his words. She had hoped that he wouldn't call her, that he wouldn't use her to control James, but now it was happening. She fell silent, unable to speak, too terrified to say anything. John continued, "You tell James that if he wants to see you alive again, he must follow my instructions. Otherwise, you'll never leave here." Diep's body trembled uncontrollably, her mind spinning. She wanted to say something, to beg him to stop, to promise she would do anything to make it stop. But the fear was overwhelming, and she could only remain silent. All she could think of was James. What would he do? Would he come for her, even though it might cost him his life? "James, please don't come. They'll hurt you, please." Diep whispered through the phone, her voice cracking with desperation. Her heart ached as she thought of him. She knew that he loved her and would never let anything happen to her if he could help it. But she couldn't bear the thought of him walking straight into danger for her. John's voice snapped her back to reality. "You tell him, Diep. If he doesn't listen to me, it's over." As she ended the call, tears streamed down her face. She wanted to believe that James would somehow find a way to save her, but deep down, she knew that he was walking into the lion's den. What if it was too late? Diep felt herself sinking deeper into darkness. She couldn't think clearly anymore. Everything around her seemed to spin uncontrollably. The fear for James, the uncertainty of the future, weighed heavily on her heart. She was terrified, not only for herself but for him, James. Diep knew that if he came, not only would she be in danger, but he would too. There would be no way out for either of them. Tears streamed down her face as she sobbed uncontrollably. Her heart ached with the helplessness of the situation. She had once believed that love could conquer all, but now all she felt was the cold, crushing weight of despair. She wanted James to be safe, to stay away from the trouble she had found herself in, but how could she ask him to stop loving her when his heart was already so deeply entwined with hers? Suddenly, her phone rang again. This time, she couldn't bring herself to react. She stared at the phone screen, feeling an overwhelming dread as she answered the call with trembling hands. "James," she whispered through her shallow breaths. "Please don't come. Don't come to save me. They'll kill you. I don't want them to hurt you. Please, don't come here." Diep's voice cracked, filled with sorrow and desperation. She was begging him, not because she didn't want to be saved, but because she didn't want him to face the same fate. She knew how much he loved her, but at this moment, love was the very thing that might tear them apart. On the other end of the line, James was silent for a long time. His heart broke at the sound of Diep's crying, but he could feel her pain, her fear, through every word she spoke. He knew she wasn't just begging for her own safety, but for his as well. Yet, James couldn't walk away from her. "Don't worry about me," James said, his voice steady, though his heart was in turmoil. "I won't leave you, Diep. You have to believe me." Diep sobbed harder, tears running down her face, her chest tightening with each painful breath. "James, I love you. But if you come, I'll lose you. You can't save me. I just want you to be safe. Please don't come. I beg you." James stood motionless, his hands clenched into fists, eyes bloodshot with worry. He knew that if he followed Diep's words, she would never be at peace, always haunted by the fear of what might happen next. But if he went to save her, he couldn't guarantee he would get there in time. Every decision seemed to carry a price. He fought within himself, torn between doing what Diep wanted, or doing what he knew deep down was right. Should he go to the police to rescue her? But what if it was too late and they killed her? After a long silence, James made his decision. He wouldn't go to the police. He couldn't leave Diep to face this nightmare alone. He would go to her. He would rescue her, even if it meant facing the same danger that she was in. He would not let her suffer alone. "Don't cry anymore, Diep. I will come for you, I promise," James said with a calm yet firm voice. "I love you. I will not let you go through this alone." When Diep heard his words, a wave of guilt and relief washed over her. She understood now that James couldn't walk away. His love for her was too strong, and he would never abandon her, no matter the cost. But even as she felt comforted by his words, she couldn't stop worrying. What if he couldn't make it in time? What if he fell into the same trap that she was in? I love you, James. I love you so much, but I don't want you to get hurt, she cried softly, feeling the weight of her own plea. She couldn't stop herself from crying, knowing that her plea could not stop him. He had already made up his mind, and he was determined to save her no matter the cost. Diep felt torn between the love for him and the fear that he would end up just like her, trapped and in danger. The minutes dragged by slowly, each passing second feeling like an eternity. The footsteps of Jana's men echoed in the hall outside her room. Diep, feeling weaker by the moment, tried to sit up but couldn't summon the strength. She slumped back to the cold floor, her back against the wall, her eyes closing in exhaustion and worry. She just had to wait, to hope that James would make it in time to save her. But deep inside, she feared that hope was already fading. The night was cold. A thin fog blanketed the road leading to the outskirts of the city, where James had traced the last signal from Diep's phone. The wind howled through the dry branches, and amid the rustling of leaves, James could hear the pounding of his own heart. No sirens, no police escort, just one man, eyes blazing with love and a burning need to protect. He stopped in front of an old warehouse, its moss-covered walls crumbling, the wooden door warped and weathered. Faint light flickered inside through the cracks, along with muffled voices, low, mocking tones. James immediately recognized Jana's voice. He crouched behind a wall, holding his breath to listen. Among the conversation, one sound made his chest tighten, a weak, raspy voice, trembling with pain. Diep. His hand instinctively touched the chain around his neck, the necklace she once gave him. His gaze turned sharp. He knew if he waited even a minute longer, it might be too late. Without hesitation, he crept along the building's edge, sneaking through the back. The wooden door creaked faintly, but no one noticed. Inside, it was dark and cold. James silently advanced, every step cautious. At the end of the hallway, a sliver of light leaked through a slightly ajar door. He approached and peeked in. Diep was tied to an old chair, hair disheveled, her pale face streaked with tears. She looked like a shadow of herself. A few steps away, John was pacing the room with two men beside him. James will come, John sneered. He's not the kind to abandon his girl. And when he does, there'll be no way out. Diep shook her head weakly, her voice trembling. He won't. He knows it's too dangerous. James couldn't bear it any longer. He burst through the door with a sudden push. All three men turned sharply. Jana's eyes widened for a split second. Unbelievable, he said slowly. You really are a fool, James. Let her go, James said calmly, voice low but firm. No one moved. The air was thick with tension. One of the henchmen rushed at James, but he dodged and swept the man off his feet, knocking him into a chair. In the confusion, James dashed to Diep's side, crouched down and began untying her with trembling hands. "James," Diep gasped, tears flowing again. "Why did you come?" James didn't answer. He simply wrapped her in his arms, holding her tightly. "I came to take you home. I promised." John stepped forward, voice low and tense. "You think you can walk out of here that easily?" James supported Diep, helping her to her feet. His eyes met John's with unwavering resolve. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here for her. But if you want to stop me, go ahead and try." The room fell silent. The tension could snap at any moment. But suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance. Flashing lights swept through the warehouse's broken windows. "Police!" Voices shouted commands outside. John turned sharply. His plan was falling apart. Taking advantage of the distraction, James led Diep out of the room. He had prepared in advance, sending the location to a trusted friend in the police before entering. He hadn't walked into danger recklessly, he'd come with a plan, and with love stronger than fear. Outside, the cold air wrapped around them, but Diep was no longer shaking. She leaned on James, her head resting against his chest, crying freely now that the fear had finally broken. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. James held her tighter, his voice soft but steady. "As long as I'm alive, you'll never face fear alone." The story of James saving Diep truly moved me and made me admire his brave and selfless spirit. In a dangerous situation, instead of standing aside or thinking only of himself, James didn't hesitate to step in and help Diep, an action that clearly shows courage and compassion. It made me reflect, in today's world, not everyone has the bravery and responsibility to help others, especially when it might put themselves at risk. James's action not only saved a life, but also spread a beautiful message about kindness and human connection. Diep was lucky to be saved, but it was James who inspired us and rekindled our belief in the good that still exists in people. What I learned from this story is that even a small act of kindness can make a big difference. And sometimes, kindness appearing at the right moment is nothing short of a miracle.